I broke up with my ex-GF because she wore black to a wedding even after she was told not to. Now she's begging for a second chance to show she doesn't have a coal black heart. Posted by you/throwaway323130. I, 32M, dated my ex-girlfriend, 33F, for about 4 years. My family is from Nigeria, and I am very proud of my culture. My ex-girlfriend is white. I grew up in Australia, but I have close ties to my roots. Originally, race was not an issue when we first started dating, but as we got more and more serious, I felt like she wasn't willing or didn't really understand how important my family and culture are to me. My sister-in-law was always close with my mother despite the cultural barrier and always seemed happy to come to family events and spend time with us, treating me like her own brother. She's even been learning how to cook some of our traditional foods from my mother, which made my mom really happy. My brother has also been learning to cook North Indian-style curries and other dishes. My sister-in-law isn't conservative or anything, but culture is important to her and my brother, and as I get older, it feels important to me too. The final straw that spurred me into action occurred at my brother's wedding. My sister-in-law is Indian, and she is also fiercely proud of her culture. They have always talked about how mixed-race kids often grow up culture neutral, whereas they wanted their kids to have the best of both worlds. I noticed that my ex-girlfriend was never that into my culture, never really spent time with my family, and didn't enjoy coming to family functions. She often questioned some of our cultural practices in a quizzical way, and I could tell that she found them a bit silly. She even made comments about immigrants not making the effort to assimilate, her words. Anyway, my brother and sister-in-law had an amazing Indian/Nigerian fusion wedding. In her culture, white is the color of widows, and black is the color for funerals, so they specifically stated in the dress code to wear vibrant colors, no black or white. My ex-girlfriend mostly only wears black. It didn't usually bother me, but on the day of the wedding, she wore a black dress. I had asked her not to wear black because it was specifically stated on the invite, but she insisted that my sister-in-law was being a bridezilla and that she didn't have to accommodate. At the wedding, my ex-girlfriend was the only person wearing black. My sister-in-law took one look at her and asked if she was going to a funeral after the wedding. My ex-girlfriend was very embarrassed and claimed she didn't have any other dresses, but then my cousin offered, "Oh, why didn't you tell us? You could have borrowed one of mine, we're the same size." My sister-in-law didn't say anything else, as she was busy with the wedding, but my ex-girlfriend was fuming the entire time. To make matters worse, she said a few other people asked her why she was wearing black. I didn't witness anyone asking, but it's possible they did. After the wedding, she was angry with me for not backing her up. I reminded her that I had specifically asked her not to wear black and that she had plenty of time to buy a different dress if needed. She argued that she had the right to wear what she wanted and that it was unreasonable to dictate a dress code since she wasn't from their culture. The argument escalated, and finally, in the heat of the moment, I broke up with her. It's been a few days, and she's been blowing up my phone, alternating between begging me for another chance and being angry that I didn't support her. I feel that, given how well my sister-in-law interacts with my family even though she's from a different culture and how respectful she is, I want a partner who values my family and culture similarly. To me, a wedding is about families, not just individuals, and I don't want to risk losing my relationship with my family over my girlfriend or wife. I need some perspective. Did I do the right thing, or should I have backed up my ex-girlfriend? Update 6 days later. I spoke to my brother and sister-in-law about it because they had noticed that I seemed down and didn't talk about my ex at all. They convinced me to talk to her, as they thought what she did was very disrespectful. They said that her kind of white didn't understand family or culture, and I had invested 4 years of my life with her. My brother and sister-in-law also told me that I owed it to myself to get some closure, and I agreed. I spoke to her a few days ago because of how abruptly the relationship ended. It did not go well. We met and had coffee in a park. I told her how hurt I was that she would disrespect my brother and sister-in-law on their wedding day by wearing a dress in one of the 2 colors they specifically asked us not to wear. She told me that she had forgotten about the wedding and had to rush to find something to wear. I told her I wasn't convinced, as the wedding had been on everyone's mind, and we had been asked to help set up the hall, which she didn't want to help with, but I did. She told me this was a stupid fight over a stupid dress. I didn't feel that way. To me, it was about her not respecting our culture. That's when she got annoyed and told me that culture is a man-made thing and that we were in Australia now. I told her that my heritage was always going to be important to me and to my future children, and that I couldn't be with someone who didn't feel the same. She then mentioned things like FGM and other practices. None of the women in my family have experienced that, and I told her that culture is a dynamic thing. I explained that my family didn't even believe in those practices and weren't backward like that. I was offended she'd even think so. I pointed out, perhaps wrongly, that all my female relatives, including my mother and cousins, were more educated and successful than her. That's when the conversation started to go downhill rapidly. She told me she had chosen a less strenuous career for me because we had planned to have kids, and she wanted to raise them herself, unlike my double-income family members, including my mother. She referred to how my mother sometimes worked weekends, which I had mentioned before. My mother got an education against all odds, and my parents have always encouraged me to educate myself, which I have done. That angered me. I told her angrily that I always respected what my parents had done for us and that she was 28 when she met me, so she didn't choose a less strenuous career because of me. She couldn't blame me for that. She then got upset and said she didn't have much time left to have kids. She asked how I could do this to her, claimed she should have listened to her family about me being untrustworthy, and said she had wasted the best years of her life on me. I told her if that's how she felt, then it was better that we stay broken up, and I got up and walked off. Yesterday, I received nasty Facebook messages from various family members, calling me everything from the N-word to claiming my ex was lucky she didn't get AIDS from me. I blocked all of them. I told my family about it, and they were furious. I'm better off without her. It's a good thing we didn't live together, even though we had belongings at both our houses. Her family was a bit conservative like that. She has texted me a few times since, apologizing and wanting to talk again, but I only responded to say that I wanted to pick up my stuff and that I had boxed hers up, so we should meet at the park to exchange them. The night before, she kept texting and calling me at midnight, insisting that I come to get my things immediately. I went with my brother, sister-in-law, and cousin, and we exchanged our belongings. Her dad was there and started getting riled up, calling me names and insulting me. My sister-in-law got right up in his face and yelled back, threatening to go to the police and show him the 15 or so messages from his daughter, in which she said she'd destroy my stuff if I didn't come to get it. My sister-in-law also said she was willing to post all the nasty messages her family had sent me to their workplaces. My ex then begged her dad to calm down, and he walked off. I refused to go inside the house and told my ex to just get my stuff. It turned out she hadn't packed it up, so my sister-in-law suggested that we drop her things off at a mutual friend's house and give my ex a week to do the same. I called around to find a friend, and my ex agreed to the arrangement at the time. Today, my ex messaged me again, apologizing and saying she hadn't expected my family members to turn up, and she had wanted to talk. With her father there? Yeah, right. I told her the same thing. She had a week to pack up my belongings and drop them off at our mutual friend's house. She texted back, saying it didn't have to be like this, but I told her it did, and I didn't want to discuss anything further. In the future, I'll notice the warning signs about a partner's family's behavior and won't always feel like I have to prove myself over and over again because I'm black. I won't put up with Nigerian scam jokes or being affectionately called Blackie just to avoid making a fuss or being seen as overly sensitive. It wasn't until I spoke to my brother, and to a lesser extent my sister-in-law, after this whole ordeal that I realized how abnormal this was. Anyway, I've dropped her stuff off and I'm just hoping I get my things back from her place. The most expensive item is a tablet, but if I don't get it back, it'll just be an expensive lesson.